Well, Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out. I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers, I'd say, Rosie, you're fired.
You know, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever, but...
I'd like to take some money out of her fat-ass pockets.
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
Okay, so probably not the best time and place to make a contemporary political statement, but you gotta see where I gave it a crack. We're heading straight for one hell of a future if we keep going in this manner, and that leads me to one of, in my opinion, the most interesting literary genres. Being quite obviously the opposite to utopia, dystopia is defined as an imagined place or state in which everything is unpleasant or bad, typically a totalitarian or environmentally degraded one. Thanks, Oxford Dictionary. The term dystopia originated around the late 18th century, but became particularly prevalent in literature from about the 1930s onwards. Huxley's Brave New World, one of my personal favourites, Orwell's classics Animal Farm, and 1984 set an impressive benchmark for classic dystopian literature. And then in 1953 came Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451.
That number you all wear, what's it mean?
Oh, Fahrenheit 451.
Why 451 rather than 813 or 121?
Fahrenheit 451 is the temperature at which book paper catches fire and starts to burn.
But more on that in a second. Dystopian literature made a comeback recently following on from the relatively short-lived re-emergence of the Gothic vampire craze.
About 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire.
Thanks for that, Stephanie Meyer. With the hugely successful Hunger Games and Divergent trilogies headlining the whole movement. In amongst this was a comic book series that went quietly unnoticed by a vast majority of people. Bitch Planet is the brainchild of Kelly Sue DeConnick and is skillfully visualised by artist Valentine Delandro and tells the story of a future damaged Earth ruled by paternalistic, faith-sprouting men. Example, rewind to the start of this little video essay. You see what I mean now? The reason we're picking these two, Fahrenheit 451 and Bitch Planet, apart from the fact they're both prescribed texts, is their similarities in ideas are fascinating based on the time periods in which they were both written. Let's take Fahrenheit 451 for example. Written in 1953, not even 10 years after the end of World War II, we see our main character, Guy Montag, working as a firefighter. And when I say firefighter, he isn't putting out fires. No, he's setting things on fire. And what are those things? Books. Seem familiar?
Teures geschaffen. Nicht unsere Wirtschaftsführer, nicht unsere Professoren.
Fast forward 60 years, and we reach our current political climate. Feminism and equal rights for women is still a huge issue that we're faced with in so many aspects of life every day, and is in fact something I am super passionate about. While Bitch Planet was written prior to Trump's presidential campaign, the media's influence on body image and unhealthy expectations for women was still a huge issue that needed to be addressed. Nowadays, we have the likes of Clem Forward, Lena Dunham, and Hillary Clinton, just to name 3 from a movement of thousands upon thousands of women across the planet vying for equal rights. Simone de Beauvoir, a personal hero of mine and writer of The Second Sex, famously criticised the patriarchal system and the way in which men had consistently denied women's identity, a theme that serves as the backbone to the dystopic future of Bitch Planet. In Sonia Sorea's article for the social commentating website www.salon.com, we have an in-depth analysis and review of Bitch Planet that serves to both spark a great deal of interest in the little-known story, as well as to subtly draw parallels to other famous dystopian sci-fi classics. This is where we revisit Fahrenheit 451. While never explicitly referring to Bradbury's novel, several points are made about Bitch Planet that reflect on the ideas that are demonstrated in the 1953 classic. Firstly, Sorea states, in a world where ads for maxi pads still won't depict blood, and feminism is a divisive term, Bitch Planet is altogether one giant pink middle finger. This is one of the first things she mentions in this article. This kind of middle finger to society is one of the defining themes of dystopian futuristic stories. Fahrenheit 451, as mentioned earlier, depicts striking similarities to some of the crimes committed during the Holocaust. The way in which Montag begins to open his mind to the idea of philosophy and reading and starts to revolt against the totalitarian construct suggests strong cultural links to the idea of a Nazi soldier revolting against Hitler. And I mean, that's a middle finger and a half. Surveillance is constant and brainwashing is high-tech. Once again, even though brainwashing, surveillance, censorship by government, etc. is a very common theme across all dystopian future stories, a particular parallel to be drawn between the two is in the idea of media, which in this case is highlighted with Soraya using the brainwashing is high-tech line. Bitch Planet focuses a lot on the influence of media and advertisements to socially comment on the unrealistic expectations of women in society, whether it be their genital hygiene, as mentioned on a fake advertisement on the back cover, super cool, or their body types, as highlighted by the vast array of female bodies seen on Bitch Planet, this bizarre prison orange is the new black vibe thing that we've got going up in space. Fahrenheit 451, on the other hand, takes the idea of having books as a banned commodity, while brainwashing wall-to-wall screen televisions depicting mass media controlled by the government has replaced it. Another thing that's actually also explored in George Orwell's 1984, which is probably where most people know it from. Once again, media being a form of control in these frighteningly all too real worlds is hugely dystopic. As what a very, very, very common thing. As an end note, Sonia Soraya also states in the article, in relation to Bitch Planet, it embraces the over-the-top reality of a cautionary tale to tell a story that is partly a horror of oppression and the fantasy of a rebellion. Exactly what a true dystopian piece of literature should do, which is hugely reflected in both Bitch Planet and Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, and in turn makes them such exceptional pieces of work to demonstrate the dystopic genre.